When the primordials built creation, they formed the gods out of will and essence, then gave each god a name and a purpose, a sphere of influence and a position in a hierarchy that would govern creation. The hierarchy is called the celestial order, and every god, from the unconquered sun down to the lowliest dreamfly, guardian scarab, and hearth mother, has a place and purpose in it. This purpose defined the god, became its nature, so that the god would spend its time maintaining the portion of creation over which it held dominance. Every piece and part of creation has an embodiment in a god, however small or large. Not only do objects have gods, but concepts, thoughts, and feelings have gods as well. Anything that has a name in a mortal language has a god that's responsible for it, so that the gods are as plentiful as the stars in the sky and can be found anywhere in creation. The celestial order, the hierarchy of heaven and creation. The celestial order is divided into two categories, the celestial court and the terrestrial bureaucracy. The celestial court works directly under the celestial incarnate themselves and consists of all gods that embody universal principles, such as the seasons, dreams, emotions, and feelings, anything that can be considered common knowledge among mortals. Gods of physical objects in creation, such as rivers, cities, other locations, or of particular species of animals, become part of the terrestrial bureaucracy. The terrestrial bureaucracy is then subdivided into spirit courts based on location and related spheres of influence. When the primordials ruled creation before they were overthrown by the Exalted, the celestial court lived and worked on the Blessed Isle, while the primordials resided in the wondrous celestial city of Yushan. After the primordial war, the celestial incarnate granted the solar Exalted dominion over all of creation and retired to Yushan to oversee the inner workings of the universe, as well as to play the games of divinity left by the primordials. Yushan is quite simply the most wondrous city ever imagined, existing in a parallel elsewhere beyond and besides creation. It is surrounded by a great wall that keeps the chaos of infinity at bay. Overhead is the dome of the sky, and a perfect hemisphere upon which the current leader in the games of divinity is reflected. Brightest day for the unconquered sun, a full moon against a starless sky for Luna, and for each of the maidens, the constellations of their house in ascendance. Yushan is a place of wonders and miracles, where even its most common fare would bless the table of mortal kings, and its cheapest clothing would be coveted by the courtesans of the Blessed Isle. All constructions in Yushan are works of art, from the residence of the servants to the sanctums of the gods, to the roads and arches and bridges that are travelled every day. The terrestrial court followed the incarnate into Yushan as well, leaving the terrestrial bureaucracy to work under the solar deliberative in maintaining creation. The unconquered sun ceded the rule of creation to his trusted servants, the solar Exalted, and decreed that no god may directly interfere with the events of creation. All terrestrial gods were to work as monitors, watching over their spheres of influence and reporting to their superiors in the spirit court or to the solar deliberative, who would then take action. Only the celestial censors, the gods that enforced the laws of celestial incarnate, were exempt from this, but even they had to report to the nearest solar when acting in creation. The celestial court is divided into 5 bureaus: the Bureau of Heaven, Humanity, Seasons, Nature, and Destiny. The Bureau of Heaven is the largest and most powerful of the bureaus, being responsible for the laws of heaven and the concerns of the gods. All other bureaus report to the Bureau of Heaven, which reports directly to the celestial incarnate. The Bureau of Humanity is the next largest and most powerful, covering all things that have to do with civilization and mortals. Therefore, it administrates the source of wealth in Yushan. During the First Age, the Bureau of Humanity worked closely with the Solar Deliberative to aid in the ruling of creation. Since the usurpation, the Bureau of Heaven has been split into factions that argue over whether the gods should rule instead of the Solars. The Bureau of Seasons controls all weather in creation and the mechanical aspects of the seasons. This administration is governed by Luna, and it employs not only gods but the majority of elementals as well. The Bureau of Nature is responsible for all aspects of creation that aren't covered by the other bureaus, including all plant life, animal life, ecosystems, and geological features. All animal avatars and guardian spirits work for the Bureau of Nature, as do the elementals who do not work for the Bureau of Seasons. Finally, the Bureau of Destiny is the domain of the Five Maidens and deals with the loom of fate, the what and how of the future, ensuring that creation continues to exist. All motions in the heavens and in creation are monitored and governed by the Bureau of Destiny. The Celestial Order has broken down since the murder of the Solars, and now only the framework of the bureaucracies remain. The high-ranking celestial gods rarely concern themselves with the actual events in creation, preferring either to find entertaining distractions from their jobs or to play political games to gain wealth and power. Low-ranking celestial and terrestrial gods are forced to work mundane positions to keep the semblance of celestial order and to maintain their superiors' rank and power. Some of the more powerful terrestrial gods scheme and plan ways to gain rank and to become residents of Yushan so that they may attend the games of divinity too. Other terrestrial gods choose to amass followers in creation, forcing mortals to pay them tributes and enslaving lesser gods and elementals in their domain in flagrant violation of celestial law. At one time, the celestial censors, paragons of virtue and order, were charged with keeping law among other gods. But the corruption and villainy has become so rampant that many have quit their jobs and become rogues. Those who remain in their positions take little care in their work anymore and are often easily bribed to overlook transgressions. Meanwhile, the majority of the celestial incarnae are too involved in the games of divinity to notice that their celestial order is failing. It is rare anymore that the celestial and terrestrial gods interact. Most celestial gods are loath to leave the comfort and safety of Yushan for what they consider to be the barbaric and poor mortal realm. Conversely, the terrestrial gods are rarely admitted to Yushan and have to pay hefty bribes for passes, even on the most critical of business. Most celestial gods view anyone from creation as a country bumpkin at best, little more than a mindless animal at worst. Terrestrial gods tend to see their celestial siblings as haughty, rude, and ignorant of the true problems and crises of the age. In addition, it is difficult to gain admission into Yushan, since most of the gates are not only hidden away in long-forgotten temples and fortresses around creation, but guarded by great and terrible celestial lions. Only residents of the celestial cities, those with passes from the internal bureaucracy, and solar exalts from the eclipse caste, are permitted free entrance into one of the 61 gates. The only exception to this rule is the Carnival of Meetings, when the calibration gate opens at a random location in creation, and any creature, mortal or otherwise, may join in a day-long festival at calibration's peak. Immortality, death, and birth. Gods are effectively immortal. They have no measurable lifespans, they do not age or suffer from illness and disease, and they come into existence fully aware and developed. Gods do not need to eat or sleep, nor do they possess bodily functions like those of mortals. Though gods sometimes mate with mortals, and these unions produce offspring with abilities and traits associated with their divine parentage, gods do not reproduce with each other. Gods who fall in battle are usually able to restore themselves at their sanctums after their defeat. Existence can become tedious and wearisome under these conditions. which may be why so many gods became obsessed with the power games or with wealth or hedonistic practices. Yet, gods can be irrevocably slain, despite their immortality. Charms such as ghost-eating technique devours spirit essence, and it was taught to the Solars as a primary weapon for slaying the primordials. Even without this ability, it is still possible that a small or least god might not have a sanctum in which it can regenerate. Therefore, if it takes enough damage, its will and purpose is destroyed, and its essence will spread to the surrounding area to flow along the dragon lines like flash flood. A god who has had its sanctum destroyed for some reason will similarly have no place to regenerate should it be slain. Gods that are convicted of a truly heinous crime may also face a rare form of capital punishment. Every god ranked beneath the celestial incarnate is represented by a star in the heavens, and a god's star falls from the sky when it meets its final fate. If a god is found guilty and sentenced to death, its star is knocked from the heavens, and the metal that composes it is recovered by the Bureau of Destiny, then forged into a star metal object of incredible power. Besides being slain or executed, there is one other way a god's immortal life may end: for it to be forgotten. This fate is the one most feared by most gods, and it is one of the reasons that the celestial order has not broken down completely. A god who totally fails to do its duty might find that its sphere of influence has been destroyed or erased, and even the memory of its existence wiped from creation. This is rare for all but the most abstract of universal concepts, so celestial deities might not have to worry about a loss of their power, only should their sphere of influence become weakened or decayed. Terrestrial gods who have much smaller scopes of power, however, are much more susceptible. A river god, whose water dries up in severe drought, would find itself losing rank and privilege. Should that waterway disappear entirely, and all mention of it vanish from creation, on maps and so forth, it would fade from existence. Several small gods perished when their regional spheres of influence were devoured by the Willed following the Great Contagion, but a large number, especially celestial gods, were left severely weakened and unemployed. If a spirit passes away as forgotten, the star that represents it in the sky also fades. New gods come into existence frequently, though most of these are small or least gods with little essence. When a new house is built, or a new road is finished, or a new field is cleared and planted, a small or least god is created and assigned duties associated with its new sphere of influence. Similarly, should a new idea or concept take roots in the minds of mortals, this idea must have a god associated with it. Such gods come into being fully formed and representative of the place, object, or idea that they embody. Many of the least gods, such as hearth spirits, that form when a new home is built, do not last long as separate willful beings unless they associate themselves with a local spirit court and register with the appropriate bureau, or if they receive direct prayers from mortals. New ideas or concepts are rare, and these beings may have more ephemeral existences without patronage within the celestial order. Prayer and summoning. Unlike demons and elementals, gods cannot be summoned and compelled through the use of charms or sorcery. When they won the battle for supremacy against the primordials, the celestial incarnate made sure that they and their lesser siblings could not be easily enslaved again. Demons can be summoned through sorcery and other powerful magic as a condition of their imprisonment. Elementals that are not working directly for the celestial order, such as the lesser elemental dragons that serve as censors, and members of the aerial legion, may also be summoned and commanded because of their terrestrial nature and origins. A god's attention may be gained through prayer, though such a god is in no way required to respond to prayers or to act for the benefit of those who gain its interests. Normal prayers directed at a specific god are often not enough to accomplish this. Generally, it takes whole days of devotional activities, prayer, sacrifices, rites, and rituals, and so on, to gain the attention of a specific god. Extreme acts performed on behalf or in the name of a god may also catch interest. Of course, once a mortal or exalt has the attention of a god, they must make good use of it or face severe consequences. Divine powers. The powers of the spirits are grand and wonderful, and rightly called miracles by mortals. Spirits are beings of essence, held together by willpower, whose existence are defined by purpose and motivation. Gods are the living embodiments of places, items, and ideas who maintain the celestial order. Elementals are the children of Gaia, born out of essence that flows across creation, given form and flesh. They are responsible for the continued flow of essence around the world. Demons are the children of the whims of the Yozis, who endlessly seek to free themselves from their eternal prison beyond the sky. Even the weakest god, elemental, or demon wields magics that inspire awe and fear in mortals. Elementals. The primordials took essence from the vast chaotic sea that is the world, and wove it into the 5 elementals: earth, air, fire, water, and wood. Each of these elements interacts with the others, and the total result is the stuff from which creation was born. The 5 elements correspond to one of the 5 aspects of creation. Air is movement and progress. Water is change and the ability to adapt. Fire is the continual cycle of destruction and rebirth. Earth is the strength and solidity of all matter, and wood is the spark of life and the drive to continued existence. The primordials then created the gods to manage creation for them, while they retired to play the games of divinity. After some time working with the tools left behind by the primordials, and being tutored by Gaia, the youngest of the primordials, the gods succeeded in birthing the 5 original elementals. These 5 were living embodiments of the principles of the elements, and their primary purpose was to maintain the natural order of creation. These elementals were of a stature that rivaled the elemental dragons in power, who tread the length and breadth of the world in a day, and managed all aspects of the functioning of creation. The first elementals were bound to the will of the gods with strict magics and curses that forced these titanically powerful beings to always obey the celestial incarnate. When the gods rebelled, the primordials struck first against these beings, shattering their bodies and casting their essence across creation. In time, this essence collected itself and birthed the first of a new breed of elementals, far smaller and weaker than the original 5, but capable of wielding the same powers on a lesser scale and managing the natural order. The strictures that the gods laid upon the minds and hearts of the original elementals persists in those elementals that have been born later. Elementals are bound to the will of the gods with the purpose of maintaining the functions of a well-ordered creation. New elementals are born out of creation wherever there is a surge in the flow of essence through the dragon lines, and are given the purpose of correcting the balance of essence in that portion of creation. Elementals sometimes appear at the sites of great battles, where essence has been spent by multiple exalts, or where many mortals have been slain, because the great release of essence at these locations has created an imbalance that threatens the natural order. Elementals are naturally very task-oriented. The smallest and least of elementals know only their limited purview and concentrate solely on whatever tasks or task they were born into, never looking beyond the area where they live or wondering about things greater than they are. These small elementals are often born to tasks that take little time to finish. Then they are without a purpose. The gods of the Bureau of Nature collect these elementals and place them in areas that need more elemental workers, or put them to work as servants of other spirits. Unlike other spirits, elementals are naturally material, and must expend essence to dematerialize. As such, they are beings whose nature and purpose is intimately tied to the mortal realm. Though elementals are spirits and therefore naturally immortal, their existences are touched by the fragility that is inherent in all substantial things. Elementals know a bit more about mortality than other spirits. They can be slain more easily, not having the refuge of an inherently immaterial form that is immune to harm. Large predators, natural disasters, adventurous exalts, and cruel fair folk are just a few of the worst dangers elementals can face in their lifetimes. Elementals occupy the lowest ranks in the celestial order. They are looked down upon by almost all gods, regardless of their rank or power, and they are laughed at for their material disposition. Elementals are considered of low origin, being spawned by seemingly random acts of nature. They are considered ill-mannered and slow-witted because they shun the trappings of court society and prefer to complete mundane tasks. Even the most powerful elementals, those great dragons whose power rivals the heads of the celestial bureaus, and whose mere touch would destroy lesser gods, have little standing in the eyes and minds of most gods. Even the celestial censors, who are almost always lesser elemental dragons, rarely receive the respect due to their station. Elementals are grouped and ranked more strictly than other types of spirits. The essence of an elemental is far more indicative of its scope and sphere of influence, as well as its power and nature, than that of a god. Because elementals are naturally material, they grow and evolve more quickly than other spirits, and do not require change to be forced upon them. Elementals accrue power simply by surviving in creation and persisting in tasks to which they were set. They do not need to play games of politics to earn new ranks and be granted new powers by their superiors, though some of the more powerful elementals do engage their spirit cousins in such dealings. Elemental shapes and forms are as varied as the different species of demon, though not as plentiful as the number of unique forms little gods can take. The size and shape of an elemental is often determined by its essence and purpose. Least elementals are usually insects or small plants. As an elemental grows in power, so too does its size and scope. More powerful elementals take the form of larger animals such as birds, fish, snakes, and dogs. Elementals with larger essences often take on humanoid forms, or those of large predators such as bears and lions. And finally, as an elemental reaches the highest echelons of rank and power, the only physical shape that can contain its essence is that of a dragon. The 100 Gods Heresy. The 100 Gods Heresy isn't one of faith. Rather, it is a collective term for the cults in the realm and the threshold that directly worship the spirits and deities that pervade the land, rather than following the immaculate rituals and letting the dragon-blooded handle any necessary contact with the gods. While the Immaculate Order recognizes the existence of these spirits, it considers them to be mere spiritual functionaries who are distracted from their proper duties by worship and prayer. Members of the Order give ritual thanks to the spirits on appropriate holidays, and this, which is no more and no less than the dragons decreed proper, is what should be given according to the Order. Naturally, the gods themselves are in favor of being worshipped. Whatever individual minor gods might say to immaculate representatives, particularly those with the charms to affect spirits, no god is ever going to object to prayer and devotion. Prayer is a commodity, and the gods want it. Prayer is bribery, and like bribery, it works. If you can pay your local gods well, they'll protect you. If you don't give them what they want, they might not go out of their way to harm you, but they won't bother to help you with your crops, or protect your livestock, strengthen your children, or perform any other miracles for you. The Immaculate Order acts as much for secular social reasons as religious ones, whether all of its members realize this consciously or not. Theological dissent goes hand in hand with conflict with the realm. For the preservation of proper social order and stability, the populace must allow the dragon-blooded to handle all spiritual contact. This does not mean that all local gods are necessarily good, or that the doctrine of the immaculate dragons is evil, but it does mean that by enforcing proper worship and depriving lesser gods of prayers and rites, the Immaculate Order is supporting the realm.